myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. And it feels alright.
Good evening, welcome along to a special live edition of NUFC Matters, and we always go for something a little bit different at the weekend, so I'm delighted to say I've got the host of Paranormal V's, Kell, with us tonight. How are you, Kell?
Hi, yeah, I'm great. How's you?
Very good. Good to see you, and delighted to have you on the show. It's something which I wanted to do for a while, and I think after speaking to my good friend Yvette Fielding about her experience on Most Haunted and the paranormal, I thought it would be great to get you on and have a chat. And a lot of people in the chat thoroughly enjoyed the Yvette Fielding interview. So let's get cracking and let's find out, I guess, first of all, how you got into it. What was your first experience? Tell us about what happened when you were 6 years old, first of all.
Right. When I was 6 years old, I had an operation, which I flatlined. Knew nothing about that until I was a bit older. But my mum used to say from that time, I used to sense stuff and I used to she used to hear I was talking to people that weren't there. So that's when I think my obsession with that sort of thing started. And then when I was 9 years old, I seen my first apparition. So it just led on to there, really.
Okay, so first apparition. Tell us about that. Tell us about the situation and what it was.
Yeah, I was playing hide and seek in a friend's bedroom, well, in a house. We went into I went into her back bedroom thinking she had went into there, and all lights were off, and you could just see the light streaming in through the curtains from the park at the back of the house. And I thought I seen my friend crouching against the back of the wall, like hugging her knees, crying. So I went over. I thought, what's wrong with her? What's happened? So I went to touch her, put my hand on her, and my hand went straight through and just completely vanished. So, she was crying. I could hear her weeping as well at the same time. So, like I say, I ran out straight home, told my mum what had happened, and she was talking to her neighbour 2 days later. And the neighbour told her that back in the 1950s, there was a fire in the house and there was a little girl died in the back bedroom, a smoke inhalation. And she was found like crouched up. So that's obviously what I seen. So that was the first one anyway.
I mean, how did you feel? Were you frightened? Were you scared? Were you, with reflection, how did you feel after the event?
Terrified. I didn't know what to think, to be honest. I just knew in my own head what it was. That wasn't something normal. I was absolutely petrified. And like I say, I didn't go back to that friend's house ever again.
No surprise. Obviously that kind of thing happening at such a young age, I guess at 9, it could probably be deemed as trauma.
Yeah, you could do. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Exactly. I mean, it played on my mind for quite a bit, but like I say, from being a young age, I was just like drawn to that sort of thing. It's school even. I would do like projects, like kids would do projects on the cat or the dog or whatever. I would do projects on ghosts and stuff like that. So it always sort of stuck with us.
Wow. So, I mean, as you get older and you get wiser, did you start reading books on it and, investigating it?
Yeah, some of my first books I stole from Walker Library. I shouldn't really say that, but yeah, ghost books. I've still got them. A little bit of true crime on you. Yeah, I've still got them actually somewhere. I come across them the other week and I was like, oh my God. Yeah, but that's the only books I used to like sort of read when I was a kid, like anything to do with, like I say, the ghosts, the paranormal. Like I say, I was just completely obsessed.
And from that age, you go on, you leave school. How did you take your interest forward?
I used to go to paranormal investigations. Obviously, what's it called? Alan Robson Night Owls.
Yes, now he loves the paranormal stuff, doesn't
he? Yeah. There was a one that I first went to up in Ashington. It was above a pub. That I went to with him. And obviously other people were there. And that's how we started doing investigations. But I didn't really do much investigations until I joined my first team. That was in 2012, I think it was. But I mean, I used to still, like, me and my friend used to walk around looking for ghosts, as you do when you're kids. Well, I think most kids do that.
I mean, from your perspective as well, you were big into your history, weren't you? You liked history. I guess that dovetails a little bit with ghosts.
Yeah, it is. Well, I'm a historical researcher, so I mean, at school, that was one of the options I did take, is the history. So I was another thing I was obsessed about. So it's like getting into the libraries and finding history to collaborate. To show that what you've actually experienced is true, it just blows your mind. I've found out some things that, like, in the past, that I don't think was like really public knowledge to the experiences that we've had. So it blows your mind when that happens.
Yeah, I can imagine. It does. So you said you joined your first team. Tell us what that's all about.
Yeah, I joined my first team in 2012, and that was ASAP. I don't know what it stands for, I can't remember, but we've done a few investigations, and like I say, it just went from there. And it wasn't until I joined Ghost Investigate, and that's, have you ever heard of Drew Bartley and Darren Ritson?
Yes, I have. Yeah, I've done a little bit of research into them before we spoke.
Yeah. Well, basically, I took over from Darren's place when he left the team. So, I mean, Darren's wrote absolutely loads of books, Haunted Newcastle and stuff like that. And like I said, they're amazing investigators, and they're all part of the SPR, the Society of Psychical Research. So most of the team, we become members as well, because there's just that they show you how to investigate the right way, instead of some teams just go in and start calling out and, you know, like trying to aggravate things, and they don't actually try and rule out, you know what I mean, and debunk things.
So you say a right and wrong way. Take us through the right way.
Well, technically there's no right and wrong way, but like for the SPR, they want everything done scientifically. So like they'll rule out like environmental factors and stuff like that. Like is there air pressure? Like if a door opens downstairs, has a window been opened upstairs to cause it? Noise can cause things, or black mold spores that can cause you to hallucinate. Like obviously EMFs and stuff like that from like Wi-Fi and stuff like that can like interfere with like equipment and stuff like that. So you've got to like rule out everything that's not paranormal before you can actually rule it as paranormal.
And the wrong way, you mentioned a little bit earlier there, you just said, like, you know, going in and just shouting and aggravating. I mean, is you know, is that something which you obviously clearly you shouldn't do?
Everybody alone, I guess, but that's not what we do. We like stand back. You don't really need to call out to get a response. If they want to be known, then they'll be known. They'll show themselves to you. So you've just got to basically have the patience. There's a lot of people that think that when you do paranormal investigations, it's going to be like Ghost Adventures or something like that, where everything happens every 5 minutes. It doesn't. You can go to an investigation at the same place for like about 2-3 times in a row, and nothing happens. So you just, like I say, you've just got to be really patient.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, I guess there's a lot of disappointment when you go to places, on, a particular expedition, and sometimes it's just nothing happens.
Yeah, that's happened quite a few times. It's unreal how many times that happens. There's some places that people say that are really haunted, and when you get there, there's just nothing. It's just completely flat. Nothing happens. So it is really disappointing when that happens.
And there'll be other times where you go to somewhere and you probably get a feeling. You get like a certain feeling, within a place.
Yeah. Oh, my whole like career in the paranormal and stuff like that has been built on that. Like when I used to work on the doors, I used to be in specific places, and like when there's loads of people in there, the energies get mixed, so you can't really pick much up. But then once you're in a bar at the end of the night, and it's like then you can start picking up like on the different energies, and you get like these weird. Like things will start happening. We used to get like pennies thrown at way from across the room. There was nobody else in the bar, just me and a few people sitting around at the end of the night. And it's like we'd get things thrown at way, like little plastic shot glasses and stuff like that. And then like you would hear somebody shouting from the girls' toilet. For some reason, I don't know why, it's always the girls' toilets. And then you go in and check it again, and nobody there.
Those kind of situations, I guess would unnerve most people. You know, how do you feel now? You know, obviously when you were younger, it scared you. How do you feel now when something like that happens? Are you excited because something's happening, or are you still nervous?
I get excited, but like when things happen and it's all of a sudden, I have been known to get a little bit afraid. Let's just say.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned bars in Newcastle when you were doing the doors. Is there a particular bar? I mean, you know, can you mention the one that happened in where the shot glass and the penny went across the room?
Yeah. It's I used to work in Powerhouse and Pink Room, so this used to happen in Pink Room quite a lot.
So have you looked into the history of that building? Because obviously people who know where that is, it's, you know, it's just before you turn left onto the Red Heath Bridge. Is there a particular story around that building that you know of?
Not really, but apparently there was a guy in there. Well, what we picked up on, there was a guy in there, and he wasn't a very nice person. We got the name Charles as well for some strange reason, and it wasn't just me. It was like another two sensitive people got the same thing. But like I say, there was that much that happened. But the history of the place, we couldn't actually pick anything up. There used to be an old tavern there, like on that area back in the day, like Coach House. So we're thinking it's like got something to do with that.
Is there anywhere in Newcastle, you know, you've been where, you know, you've had a particularly bad experience or a good experience with what you do?
There was another bar I worked at. It was on New Year's Eve. I can't remember how many years ago. I think it was 2016, 2017. It's the Bridge Hotel, but right next to the Castle Keep. You go downstairs to go to the women's toilets again, and as I'd done a toilet check, come out, and basically there was a pop sound to the left of us, and I turned to see what it was, and there was just a shadow figure at the side of us, and basically I got a fright in my life, and I went to run up the stairs, and I tripped up and I face planted the floor. Picked myself up, went up and spoke to the management, and she was like, "Oh yeah, well, that happens all the time. Like there's a lot of people talk with the same thing." And I was like, "You what?" So she checked the cameras, and you could see me reacting to static. That's all that would show up is static, and yeah, that's all she said about it. But she says that there's loads of people see the same thing all the time, hear a noise, and then obviously see a shadow figure. So,
do you think you've got to have a particular gift? You know, your mum said, you know, after the age of 6, you know, you had that particular gift, and you know, do you personally feel that you have to have that gift to be able to see ghosts?
I don't think you have to particularly have that gift, but I think it helps being sensitive to it, because I mean that's not the only apparition I've seen either. I've seen another one when I had owned a tattoo studio. It was just a man that just appeared in front of me. Well, not in front of my face. I was painting, and I was expecting somebody to turn up to fix the alarms, and like seen somebody out the corner of my eye, and I turned around, and there was a guy in the doorway, and I says, "Oh, 2 seconds, I'll be with you." Put me paintbrush down, and he evaporated in front of my eyes, and at that point I thought I was going crazy. Actually thought I was losing the plot. So yeah, that was like one of the most scariest experiences that I've ever had in my whole entire life, because he looked real. So
wow. Okay, if anybody wants to share their stories like Ian has, please do. Or anybody's got any questions for Kell, stick them in the chat. We've got 45 minutes or so. We'll do an hour if people want us to. I had a really odd experience when I went to the toilet once, not taking the, not extracting the urine, he says, but I was, it was really odd. He said the light went out. I couldn't find it. And my toilet is only 8 by 8. He says, I was in there for over an hour trying to find it. And he says, at one point, I can remember shouting for help. It was like I was in a tunnel. Then eventually I found a bit of string. I pulled it. The light came on. I was just standing in my toilet. He says, it's the weirdest experience of my life. He says, and I'm not taking the mickey here. He says, it was utterly bizarre. He says, my mate reckons I must have fell asleep. He says, but I can remember it clearly. He says, I was literally shouting for help. My neighbour came to check to see if I was okay. Is that kind of thing connected, do you think?
I mean, I have heard things like people saying that time slips and stuff like that, or portals. He could have like obviously got into one of them, and that's why like it took him so long to find what he was looking for. possibility.
Strange. He says, my only explanation is what my mate said. I fell asleep, but I can clearly remember it. Stephen Kennedy says, my house is haunted, but I'm used to it now. My mum could never spend the night here. I mean, can you live alongside spirits, Kelly? Is it a good idea?
I used to live up in a converted barn up in Alnwick, and basically it was about 300 years old, and that place was haunted. We're seeing things on a regular basis up there, and it wasn't just me, it was like anybody who came to the house. So we had to live along with it, like night after night. We'd hear footsteps walking around the bed, opening the jewellery box, slamming it shut. So we just got on with things. We didn't really bother that. That didn't really bother us, apart from waking up during the night. But you can live side by side with them. A lot of them don't bother you.
I guess you get friendly spirits, but you get evil spirits.
You get negative ones. Yeah, the ones that like obviously try and throw you about and stuff like that. There's poltergeist activity as well. So, but poltergeist activity is not as common as what like normal hauntings are. So, obviously, Darren again talks about the South Shields poltergeist in one of his books. So that's one of the only ones I've heard around the northeast that was really big in its day. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't like live in a house with a negative like energy or anything like that. So I think I'd definitely move in. I'm an investigator, and I'd definitely move.
Stephen Kennedy says, I had a ghostly meeting at Ramside Hall years ago when I worked there. I also had an experience at the Schooner at Alnmouth, two places which essentially are, like bars and places which have got history. Have you ever watched Nuke's Top 5 on YouTube? Pretty good, but I don't know what to believe, says Stephen.
No, I've never seen that. No.
Okay, maybe he's add it to a list. We'll have a look. Total Combat, good evening. He says, question for Kell, is Kevin Bacon still going strong? What's that all about?
Years ago, I bought what I thought was a mini pig, and I called him Kevin Bacon, and I had him for a few years, but he ended up not such a mini pig. He was quite large. So he died. He died quite a few years ago of a heart attack. So I haven't had him for a while now.
Okay, Stephen in UFC Warburton says, hi, Steve, please can you ask Kell if she's ever watched The Ghost Inside My Child? It's actually unbelievable, but believable at the same time, and it's totally changed my views on life.
It rings the bell, so I must have watched it at some point, but I watched that many documentaries and stuff like that. I kind of keep track, to be fair.
Yeah, I can imagine you probably do, because it's, it's something which, makes money, I guess, for views, and a lot of these companies will make stuff. Before we came on air, we discussed a few places, up and down the country, which, have got that tag of most haunted. They're on a most haunted website, which we were looking at. And one of them, of course, is a well-known place in the Northeast. And as we're both from the Northeast, it made sense to start with that. And that's Chillingham Castle in Northumberland, which dates back to the 12th century. And of course, it's had its fair share of ghostly tales and encounters. And anybody who knows Chillingham Castle, it holds frequent ghost tours, which allows visitors to spot some of the castle's other worldly inhabitants. That includes a blue boy, a tortured child, and the ghost of Lady Mary, and a spooky royal procession. That all sounds a pretty full house there, Kelly. Have you been up and have you experienced anything there?
I've been to Chillingham Castle quite a few times, but I've never actually done an investigation there. It was something I wanted to do years ago, but obviously getting sidetracked by life and everything else that I've done, and going on, like, it's mostly private investigations that I've done in the past. So never actually got the opportunity to investigate that one.
Well, a crowd on NUFC Matters are going to book in for later this year, so maybe we can touch base and get you to come along with us. I think that would be a great idea.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Oh, yeah, that sounds good, yeah.
It would be good to have an expert there. That's for certain. Especially when it gets dark, when we do go. But I know John is sorting that out, so I will let you know about that.
Yeah.
You say private investigate. You do a lot of private investigations. What's the difference between going to do something like Chillingham Castle as part of a group and doing something private? What do you mean by that?
Private investigations is like when somebody's got a haunting in the house and they want us to come in to try and figure out what it is or get some evidence of it. So basically, that's what the private investigations are. Or otherwise, we're having to fork out our money going into to pay people to let us into their places, because it's become like really expensive to try and get into some locations that you want to obviously try and investigate these days. It's like paranormal investigation has just become such a popular thing.
Yeah, it certainly seems like it. Stephen says, I asked the ghost to fetch me a beer in before she went upstairs. 10 minutes later at half time, I went to get myself the beer and shouted up to her sarcastically to say thanks. I'm not sure whether he's been serious or not. Thanks, Stephen. Anyway, he often sends a lot of tweets in for Tweet of the Week. Ghost with Demi Moore was decent, says Stephen. Not quite the same. Not quite the same. Kelly, do you support the tune? Says Ian.
I'm from Newcastle. What do you
Obviously.
think? Yeah.
Also on this list, then, on hauntedrooms.co.uk, which is worth having a look at if you're planning something. There's a couple here which stand out. There's Ancient Ram Inn in Gloucestershire. There's Pendle Hill in Lancashire. Any of these places? Borley Rectory, Essex doesn't look too welcome, and I've got to be honest, it looks like it's had better days.
Borley Rectory is burnt down years ago, so it's not even there no more. It's
Wow.
It's on, well, they reckon that the land that it was on is still haunted, but that's not actually there anymore.
Okay. Is there anything that stands out then in these other places? I mean, I guess the one that most people will know from a day out in Edinburgh or spending a bit of time in Edinburgh is Mary King's Close in Edinburgh. What's your take on that? Have you been up to that?
I have been up to it. I haven't done an investigation to that one either. But I have got I have, it's on my bucket list anyway, but I've got a friend that can get us into the Greyfriars Kirkyard, they call it. So apparently there's loads of activity going on there all the time. So it's one of my friends who does his own podcasts and stuff like that. So we're going to go and investigate up there at some point, because we're going to Scotland. I think it is sometime after the holiday season, after the summer holidays, because I've just recently found out that my 22nd great grandfather was Robert the Bruce. So we're going to go and try and go around all the locations that he owned, all the castles and stuff like that, and try to investigate in all them.
Okay, worth popping up to the Edinburgh one, because that one is one of the most famous ghost hunts to go on. The ghost is supposed to be of a 10-year-old girl named Annie who died of the plague, and visitors to this day leave dolls and sweets for her in her old home. So definitely worth popping up to that. As I say, jump on hauntedrooms.co.uk. You mentioned that website, your mate's website. Do you want to give that a shout out, just so people can go on?
My friend's podcast.
Yeah.
It's just know it's Paranormal in History. If you look for it on Facebook, there's a group, or on YouTube.
Okay, good stuff. So you say you haven't done any investigations into those couple of places I've mentioned. Is there anywhere that you have done one which stands out?
Nelson in Sunderland. I don't know if you know that one.
I don't know. I'm not too familiar with Sunderland. I did go to school there, of course, but I don't think they roll out the welcome mats for me being a big Newcastle fan in Sunderland. But yeah, tell us about that.
It's basically called the North East Land Sea Museum. It's where they house all the World War II and World War One aircraft and vehicles and stuff like that. We've been there quite a few times investigating. I actually got footage of what looks like to be a World War II fireman on one of the photos that we had. I heard something rustling around in the dark, started shooting photos, took a few photos afterwards and compared them, and you can see the outline of his tin hat. And that's where they had the fire engines from World War II. So that was pretty good evidence. And also there's been a few things that's happened there. It's some of where experiments, because I've got experiments that nobody else has got, was made by Drew Bartley. So there's some of them that's went off a few times when we've went there. I did do a lone vigil in one of the hangars there, and I had a head cam on and called out, just said, if anybody's there, can you just bang 3 times? And next thing you know, from the back where nobody was, there was 3 really loud bangs. So we got that on camera as well. And also me running out the room and falling over again.
Dear me, yeah. Seems to be a running theme throughout your investigations, but I'm not surprised. Okay, we're coming up to halfway through the show. I'll play the ads. Anybody's got any questions, stick them in the comments. We'll come back after this. A big thanks to all our sponsors, Skips and Bins. You can find them at skipsandbins.com or telephone 0800 25 45 25 3. Email inquiries at skipsandbins.com. Website skipsandbins.com. Easy contract free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Big thanks to Mr. Vicky's Sauces Handmade in Cumbria. You can order them from their website, mrvickys.co.uk, or by telephoning 01768 210 102. A big thanks also to New Workwear. You can find them at newworkwear.com. They are an agile and dedicated workwear provider. Welcome back as well to United Travel. They are a UK coaches firm and they are based in the Northeast. They've got 2024 tours and you can contact them on 01670 632 460 or mobile 0791 666 4174. Email info@unitedgrouptravel.com. And they've got a website, which is unitedgrouptravel.com. There's no strangers on their tours, just people you haven't met yet. Big thanks to them for their sponsorship. Big thanks as well to Media Arts, and they supply all the video technology. If you want to become a member and get a cup, a pen, a membership card, and a scarf, then get your smartphone and put it over this QR code. It will take you straight to the membership pack. It's a £25 one-off fee. You can also go to NUFC Matters website and search membership pack to book today. If you want to help the channel, then subscribe to it by hitting the subscribe button. Hit the thumb up under the video to like the video and click share to share to your other social media. We're also available as a podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and other podcast providers. Don't forget, we help the food bank on this channel. If you want to do so virtually, go to nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk and make a donation today. The Alan Shearer raffle is back on. 150 tickets, £1 a ticket. Win a limited edition signed Alan Shearer ball. Enter today at nufcmatters.com. Okay, Stephen Kennedy asks, do you believe in objects being haunted? Because I've got a true story.
Yeah, I do. One of my old team members, Drew, he had a haunted doll and he's very skeptical. And basically, the stuff that he's had happen in his flat since he got this thing, and he's tried to palm it off on me a few times to keep it for a weekend and everything, and I won't do it. But yeah, I do. Apparently, I have a few haunted objects, but they're part of the kit that I've got. But like I say, I keep them tucked up out the way, so nothing's happened yet. But I've heard loads of stories about haunted objects. Yeah.
When you say kit, I mean, can you divulge what it is, or is it top secret?
Basically, I've got experiments. I don't really tell people what they are, because I don't want people copying them. But one of them is trigger objects with haunted items that's obviously been painted like UV. So as soon as they move, they're under UV light as well, so you can tell straight away if they've been moved. So that's just like one of them. But a normal like paranormal investigators kit consists of like just like cameras, REM pods, K2 meters, millimeters, SLS cameras. There's just so much. I've got like sound meters and temperature gauges and stuff like that. So it's just bog standard stuff, really. Apart from, like I say, the experiments I've got.
Okay, a couple of questions coming in. Ray, good evening, mate. Big supporter of the channel. He says, hi, Kell. Have you investigated the Travelling Man pub in Bolden? He says, apparently it's one of the most haunted pubs in Britain.
The thing is, though, is like there's a lot of places that get the rep for the most haunted pubs in Britain or places in Britain. That just everywhere that you go, they always say is the most haunted. But I haven't had the pleasure yet on that one. Like I say, I mean, most of my investigations, I mean, I have done a few pubs and stuff like that, but most of them have been private investigations. So I'm not really done nothing over that way apart from Nelson, I would say.
Okay, that's the answer to that question. Ray also asks, does Kell think spirits could be interdimensional?
That's a good question. There's a lot of debate on that on some of the podcasts that I'm on. And I actually think that they possibly could be, yeah. Because obviously I don't think that like we're the only people here. Obviously, I think that there's other dimensions that actually surround us. So there's a possibility that when they come through, they're just like coming through like a little bit of a veil or a time like a slip in that, or a bit of a portal type of thing. We can all be in the same location at the same time, but they're in a different dimension.
Yeah, so it's like a crossover in time, a bit like, I guess like Back to the Future.
Yeah, exactly.
Parallel lives. Interesting. Okay. Ian says, have you ever investigated something and it turned out just to be some bloke wearing a sheet?
No, but that would be fun to film anyway. I'd love to get that on camera. No.
Have you ever managed to get a spirit or a ghost on camera, or a photograph of one, or what you thought was one?
Yeah, I've got quite a bit of evidence. But it's like I say, it's everything's always, because it's taken in the dark, is mostly grainy, so you can't be 100% sure. But we have got things that can't be explained that easy. Like we've got lights, we've got like oh God, how can I explain this? The things that are not like a lot of people think that bugs or dust is orbs, and they're not. It's just dust. So you have to rule that out. But there is some of them that look really different to what bugs would do and stuff like that. And like I say, it's hard like separate them from each other type of thing. I mean, I've seen some that are like seem to be glowing from within, and that's what I would tend to see are orbs. Whereas obviously the ones that just flit across the screen and stuff like that, or float in or dust. I've got loads and loads of things. I've got stuff on my TikTok, like when people thought that they were orbs and it's dust. But yeah, I've gotten a few things. I mean, most of one of my friends has got quite a bit of the footage that I've been on, because I was on their team at the time. So, but I have got like I say, photos that can't be explained, like shadows, outlines of people and stuff like that.
Stephen says, did anyone watch Ghost Watch back in the 90s with Michael Parkinson? He says, it got me with the Mr. Pipe shadow behind the curtain. I think the BBC banned it in the end. Yeah, there's been a few TV programs. It's a bit like a fad, though, isn't it? Sometimes it's in, sometimes it's not. I mean, Most Haunted is probably one of the biggest shows that that we've seen in this country, and some quite scary stuff. I've mentioned it at the start of the show. Yvette Fielding's interview where her partner actually has still got the scars from this actual rather savage attack by a spirit, and completely unexplained. But yeah, it's not something that's on the TV, terrestrial TV all the time, but I guess you can pick it up on the cable channels, can't you, Kell?
Yeah. I mean, like I'm not a big fan of some of these shows, because I mean, like Ghost Adventures and stuff like that, it's been widely known that they do exaggerate a little bit, so I'm a little bit skeptical of them sort of things. There's a few YouTube channels and all that do the same thing, that exaggerate, so you can't be sure what's real and what's not these days.
Yeah, okay. I Like Coffee, good evening, says, I live overseas where voodoo, black magic, superstitions and supernatural beliefs are very common. Is there a starter kit for normal people to detect if there's a spirit, demon, ghost or not?
Like what I tell people when they say what's the best thing to buy, like obviously for a part of the kit, and I just say all you need is a camera, a voice recorder and a pen and piece of paper just to take note, to write things down. Keep your camera running and just keep checking it. Ask out EVPs if there's anybody there. That's the best thing. I mean, you don't have to spend absolutely thousands and thousands on equipment and stuff like that. Like I say, your camera phone's just as good. So that's what I would suggest.
Yeah, I've got to be honest. I mean, I looked into it. I've looked into it a few times, and you know, you can go on eBay and you can scroll and scroll and scroll, and there's like ghost detecting kits and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I've got to be honest. It's people just trying to make money out of
Oh, of
people's,
course.
you know, people's curiosity, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's these like new apps that you get out, and they're basically just word banks that keep repeating like after a certain length of time. So, and people think that they're real. So, it's just a way
people
of
want to
making
believe.
money.
People want to believe they're going to believe on there. Eddie, we didn't really go in depth into your Alan Robson story. He says, have you done any investigations with Alan Robson? Just tell us about what it was like going out with Alan and doing that with him, because he's somebody who's well respected up here on the Northeast and has done many shows. He's back online as well. If anyone hasn't seen on Facebook, give him a follow, give him a like. Great guy, Alan, good friend of ours, and I've got a lot of respect for him. But yeah, what was your experience like with Alan?
To be honest, it was great to meet him, and it was a great experience. But we didn't actually experience anything that night because I think there was too many people there. But it was up in, like I say, it was I can't remember the name of the pub, but it was up in Ashington. I'm talking about in 1993. This was, so it was a very long time ago. But it was like one of the first like experiences I had going out in like obviously a paranormal setting where people were actually trying to investigate the paranormal. So it was quite exciting back then. But just a shame that we never caught anything. We didn't have cameras or nothing back then. So there was a medium there and she was telling me different things. So yeah, it was really good. I mean, it's something I would love to do again. I would love to get in touch with him and go on an investigation again. But like I see he's done absolutely hundreds since then, so he probably can't remember me.
Yeah, worth reaching out though. He is back, and doing what he does best. So maybe worth you giving him a shout, Ian says, did you know the Ouija board was originally a board game? Now, I was going to ask about Ouija boards. So, perfect opportunity to ask you about it. What's your take on Ouija boards? I've seen many films of people moving stuff and it creates a bit of doubt. I've never done a Ouija board. It's not something I'll be particularly interested in doing. I've got to be honest, because I've got the belief in the paranormal. I think I would be leading myself up a particularly dark path, or an unsettling path if I did that. So what's your take on Ouija boards?
Basically, I've got one. It's part of the experiments that I've got. It's a self-propelled one. So the thought behind the Ouija board is that you've got to actually physically touch the planchette to make it so the spirit can use your energy to make it move. Whereas mine, that you don't have to touch it because it's got electrical magnetic like field that comes into it that supposedly moves it on its own. But up to now, I haven't seen it move. So I do know my best friend who's on my team, Leslie. Basically, she will not get in the car if she knows I've got that in my kit. She will not have nothing at all to do with it. She's very superstitious, and there's a lot of people that do believe in them. But like I say, I'm one of these people. I've got to see it to believe it. So I've never seen it work yet.
Okay, Jimmy Rizzo says, hi, Kell from Jimmy Rizzo. Kell, I wonder why there is never any solid proof about the paranormal, and all the pictures seem to be grainy or in the shadows. I think it's all fake. It's like, do we live on when we die? So it's a good question from Jimmy. What's your views on that?
I mean, part of my job is to prove the existence of obviously the paranormal and stuff like that. But what we'll also do is rule it out. So a lot of the pictures and all you've got to think is taken like in the dark and like at night times and stuff like that. I don't know why we do it then, because if paranormal is going to happen, it happens at any time. But like I say, it's always at night time and stuff like that. Or I don't know. That's the only reason why I think that they're grainy, because of the nighttime, and apparently they're meant to be not seen very well. I have got a theory that the longer that a ghost has been there, they sort of fade out more and more over the years. That's why like an apparition could be like solid, like a person, and then say in 20 years time they go to like a faint grey and white and then sort of like transparent. And so that's a theory that I've got. So it could be just that most of them that we're seeing is like been there for that long that they faded right out, so that's why they look grainy.
Okay, hope that answers your question, Jimmy. I'm going to read Stephen Kennedy's story out. He just sent us it on Facebook, so I will come back to that. Michael West says, what's your thoughts on spiritualism, Kell?
I mean, I'm sensitive myself, so I do believe in spiritualism. I do know quite a lot of mediums and stuff like that, spiritualists and stuff like that. I used to go to a spiritualist church quite regularly to try and develop me gifts that I used to have. I must point out as well that I had an accident in 2017, I think it was. I had my accident, and from then on, that the sensitive gift that I had disappeared completely. It's only just started coming back within the last, I would say, about the last 2 years. It's starting to slowly come back. But like I say, but before then, it's being sensitive myself, and I know what it's like to come under skepticism and stuff like that, and you've got to have solid proof before anybody will believe you. So that I didn't really tell many people that I could do that sort of thing because the way that you were looked upon. But yeah, I've got many friends. I mean, there's a guy that comes on my show called Craig Morris. He's a psychic medium. And I'm very skeptical when it comes to mediums as well. I'll make sure that they have to tell us everything sort of thing. And he completely blew my mind with the stuff that he told me. And it's stuff that nobody in the world could have known. So, yeah, I do definitely believe in them.
Okay, and we've got another question no, it's the story, actually. If you bear with us, I'm going to find it on Facebook from Stephen Kennedy. It's probably best if I check it onto my phone, actually, because I can't send it over. So, Stephen says, Steve, in 1995, I was given an old dragon ointment in Thailand, just small, not very heavy, but cool to look at. When I got home, I put it on top of the TV, and after a couple of days, I'd get up in the morning to find the dragon had moved position on the TV. After telling my skeptical mates, they said I was just loopy. After a month of this happening, I put it in a drawer and I put a small vase of similar size and weight in its place. Nothing happened. It stayed put. When I put the dragon back, it started moving position after a few days. So I measured, I made pencil marks on top of the TV, putting the middle claw of the dragon's right foot on the cross I had placed there. It clearly moved each night over the next week. I think it may have been a ghost moving it, so I got rid of it. I sent it to a friend, a hotel manager in Thailand, as a present. 2 days after receiving it, the poor bugger was badly hurt in a car accident, and I felt really guilty. So I've got to be perfectly honest. I would be very surprised if the accident had anything to do with that, Stephen. But that, again, does sound, there's no explanation to that, is there?
Yeah, I mean, he's done exactly what I would do. It's like, obviously, take down notes and like measure things, and I would have set up a camera to watch it to see if you could physically see it move. But you've done everything right. But I'm the same. I don't think that the object would have caused an accident. I don't think. Yeah, I agree with you with that one.
No, definitely not. Okay, Ian's got a question. He says, what do you think of Darren Brown, who does seances but openly admits it's just a trick? I've got to be honest, I'm a big fan of Darren Brown. I've been to watch him. He's an entertaining fella. What's your thoughts on people like Darren Brown?
I mean, like there's people that can like obviously pick up on what other people's thinking about power of suggestion and stuff like that. So I mean, things can be manipulated and stuff like that. So yeah, I can understand why, like, what he's doing in that sense of it. But like I say, I mean, I don't really watch much of him neither. So I've heard of him a few times and some of the things that he's done. But yeah, it's like I say, it's a lot of things are power of suggestion. You can get people to like admit things. But like I say, that some of the people that mediums I've spoke to, I'm very, very closed off on what I will give away. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I got called onto stage. I was selected by Darren Brown's, they get people to go into the audience and, they came down, they picked me out. I went on the stage, but, I didn't get picked. Darren did this. He does a whole load of things. And if you come under his spell, if you like, I think it's probably the best way to describe it. If you come under his spell, and, then you go on to the next thing. And I wouldn't say people are weak-minded. I just think it's people who are maybe more believable, less, I believe in in the afterlife, etc. But I
Yeah.
genuinely think, well, maybe you've got to be, thinking of something different. It's each to their own. Total Combat says, I once went to a spiritualist church, thought it was all rubbish. I sat in the back giggling at the whole thing until they pointed at me and gave me a message from someone that I was very close to. And only me and them would know what the message would mean, which was spooky. That shut me right up. I mean, that in itself, it can be, some people would paint that as a coincidence, Kell, but, I guess it's a bit like going and getting your fortune told from somebody, a fortune teller. I've done that. I've done that as well. I've been after my grandmother died, and nobody would know that my grandmother died. It wasn't something that I shared on social media.
Yeah.
This particular fortune teller wouldn't have been on my social media. But ultimately, for me, I went along with an open mind. I'd never been to a fortune teller before, but I just thought I would go, and it was an interesting conversation. And has anything come true? I'd say not, but she did know that I'd lost my grandmother.
Yeah.
That in itself was enough for me to think I'll probably go back to a fortune teller again. I didn't go after my mum died because I thought I'd made that quite public. I did like a podcast on here about my mother passing away and how to cope with grief. And I just felt, I'm going to leave it. I'll leave it for a year. If my mom's got a message, it'll hang on, So I might go back to that. And I guess that leads us to the story again we're talking about before we came on air. It's the one story I shared with you about my mom had actually almost died when she was diagnosed with cancer for the final time. And when she was in the high dependency unit, coming back round and sitting up in bed, she actually told a story about being on a bus and driving. The bus was driving and coming to a slow stop at a bus stop. And as she looked out the window, she saw her mum and her dad waving the bus on. Mm-hmm. Now that in itself, means very little. It's a dream. You're full of drugs in hospital. But the bit that does mean a lot is that as my mum told that story, one of my aunties was crying. And it was because she'd had the same dream, except that my auntie was standing at the bus stop. And she saw the same bus going past with my mum on, and my mum looking straight ahead as, my auntie waved. So that in itself isn't seeing a ghost, but I still think that the fact that two sisters had the same dream, that's something that you can't really explain, Kell, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like I say, I love stories like that. It's so interesting, especially when it's been like confirmed by another party exactly the same thing. So that is absolutely unbelievable. It's brilliant. I love things like that.
You obviously do a podcast now. You started a podcast in 2023, Paranormal V's channel. Tell us what kind of things you discuss on there, and who you do it with, etc.
Yeah, I started off last year doing a podcast called Closing the Gap with one of my friends in America who owns a network called Paralanx. I started off with them, and then I basically had to finish doing that one with him because my ex-boyfriend wasn't very happy with it. I won't go into details. So it wasn't until about January that me and my friend came up with the idea of doing this other one. My co-host, he's an American. He's an investigator from over there. And so we basically talk about the differences between the paranormal in the UK versus America. We'll have like guests on from America. We'll have guests on from the UK, and we'll talk about everything from UFOs, ghosts, cryptids. We even do conspiracy theories and stuff like that. So it's we're always got lots on, and like every time that we do with podcasts and that, we just seem to be full up with like guests and that until I think it's like February. Like we're fully booked until February now. So we've got quite a few people that's wanting to come on the show to tell their stories. So it's pretty interesting.
Fantastic. I like Coffee says, my family and friends have experienced a lot of strong paranormal activity like spirits, demons, ghosts, except me. If we do come across the paranormal, do we respond or ignore? Is it dangerous?
A lot of people actually do ignore it, or they don't notice it, because some of them are just subtle. Like you'll hear a tap or a little rap or something like that, and they'll just put it down to something like simple. Whereas a lot of people will put it down to, like, they'll notice it straight away and think, well, what's that? And more inquisitive minds, especially. But yeah, like I say, it's I mean, I'm not a big believer in demons. I've done obviously a course in demonology, but I'm not a big believer in it, because I don't really believe in angels and stuff like that neither. So I'm very, when it comes to people saying everything's demons and stuff like that, I just, like I say, negative energies, yeah, but not demons. So
you mentioned you mentioned UFOs. Are you a believer in UFOs and aliens?
Yeah, I am. My parents seen a UFO on the night I was conceived, believe it or not. Funny story behind that as well. But there was a bar in Mocha full of, I think it was my mum said about 20 or 30 of them came out and seen it as well. So yeah, I definitely believe in stuff like that. I've heard loads of stories as well. So
did they describe what it was like to you? What? Yeah.
They said it was like a silver cylinder object, and it says it looked like it had windows in, and it definitely wasn't do you know, like a blip or whatever you call them.
Yeah.
Nothing like that. And the says it hovered there for a while, and then it shut off. And then it wasn't until later on they seen it again for the second time. So, but like I say, it was witnessed by quite a few people. And then there was a guy that actually got in touch with us a few months ago. He was telling us about his UFO experience, and it would have been around about the exact same time, and it was exactly the same thing that he described. And this was on the other side of the city. So it just seems weird that, like, obviously two things happened in the same time, exactly the same.
Wow, amazing stuff. I mean, I haven't seen a ghost, but I do believe that I saw a UFO. But I was very young. I was 12 years of age, and I do believe I saw one when I was living at home back in the day. And it was simply a case of going to bed and shutting my curtain, just about to shut my curtains, ready to get into bed. And this ship, again, silver kind of, wasn't cylindrical, mind, but it was a craft I'd never seen before, just shot past the window. Not too close to the window, but just shot past. And I'll always remember that. It's one of those things. It could have been anything. You just don't know. It wasn't a drone, because drones weren't invented then. But what was it? It was something. I went straight downstairs. I told my parents, and they came up. They went outside. It had long gone, but it's always one of those question marks. You'll never know what it was. And there's many sightings of UFOs and stuff. And I think my mindset on that, Kell, is you've got to be open-minded. I think it is very ignorant of us as a race to think that we're the only life out here. And I think that's what Stephen means when he says got to be life out there. I think there's so many galaxies far away, which we've got no chance of ever reaching, and no chance of us ever seeing anybody reach them in our lifetime. I think there has to be something out there, doesn't there?
I mean, I think we're coming very, very close now to disclosure about them. You're hearing stuff all the time, like especially from America and stuff like that. Like the government's getting ready to admit everything. So I think this year or next year we're going to be told the truth about that. So but I must admit, when it comes to the UFOs, I mean, have you heard of the fire in the sky incident that happened?
No, tell us about that.
Basically, the fire in the sky incident it was a blockbuster movie. Hollywood movie was made about it. It happened to Travis Walton in Snowflake, Arizona. We've basically interviewed Mike Heston Rogers, who was the car driver when that all happened. We've had him on the show, and I've had him on the show twice, actually. And apart from him not being able to understand Geordie, it was mind-blowing to talk to somebody who's actually witnessed something like that. He describes it in detail. He's painted the craft numerous times. Like I say, he's seen his brother-in-law. Well, it wasn't his brother-in-law at the time, but his best friend being obviously shot with a beam from this UFO. And they just took off because they were petrified. They left him. And like I say, a few days later, I think it was 5 days later, he appeared back. The police were getting ready to look at them for murder and hiding the body, but he turned back up and obviously he started getting regressed and coming out with all these memories of these alien beings and doing experiments on him and stuff like that. So
wow.
it's pretty amazing.
And yeah, I've seen it on the news that they're talking about potentially releasing some files, releasing the stories, and there seems to be pressure being put on, and it will be massively interesting to find out what they've been hiding from us for all these years. The way that the last 5 or 6 years have gone, God knows what's around the corner.
Yeah.
From your perspective, America seems to be a big thing. You've done podcasts in America. You're looking to get out there at some point, Kell, aren't you? What's the attraction in America? And I guess there's probably a bigger interest out there, is there?
Yeah, there's so many places that you can investigate out there so easily. They welcome it over there. Like I say, everybody and the uncle out there is an investigator, or they know somebody that's had haunted experiences and stuff like that. So I'm going out there in October. I'm going to go and stay with friends, but they're investigators as well. So I'll be investigating while I'm out there, and I'll be doing some of the podcasts from out there while I'm there. So I just can't wait. Like I say, I won't get around everywhere because there's just so many haunted locations out there that are nowhere near. It's like the other end of the country. So I'll be going back out there, I think, next year as well to try and travel around and doing as many as I can while I'm out there.
Fantastic. Ian, who's contributed a lot tonight, thank you. He says 2 possibilities exist. Either we are alone in the universe or we are not. That is both equally terrifying, he says. I Like Copy says, what about parallel universes? Are they just a theory? Ian would say that quantum physics suggests yes. But yeah, parallel universes, we touched on it a little bit earlier, didn't we? But from our perspective, I think we both agree that that is something that probably exists.
Yeah, I mean, there's scientists out there that's actually said that there is parallel universe, that one of them runs in reverse, apparently. So, but
what is that? What do you mean by that?
Like time runs backwards in the parallel universe.
Right, okay, interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I don't really fully understand it myself, but like I say, that's what they've said anyway. So it's very interesting. But when it comes to UFOs and stuff like that, it's like there's another thing that's obviously are them interdimensional as well, because some of them are not actually physical. They're just supposedly made of light. So there's that theory as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there was some videos came out a few years back of aircraft. I think it was military aircraft. It took these photographs and video footage of these little black flying objects, and they were unidentified. They weren't coming up on radar, but they were clearly there. And that in itself, I think, probably prompted people to say, we need to know what's going on here, we need to be told. But of course, if it is something more sinister, which they haven't got an answer to, people want an answer to everything these days. And if they don't get an answer, that's going to cause probably panic among some people. So, yeah, it is strange. Travis Walton was interviewed on the Joe Rogan podcast. Fascinating, says Mark Pearson.
Yeah.
And Stephen says, so in a parallel universe, there may have been a Macam in Milan. No, Stephen, definitely not. And I Like Copy says, if I could turn back time, I would get better grades in some of my exams. Quick shout out to the podcast that Kell does. It's in the description box below. Paranormal V's channel. The link is there, and there's also a link for the Facebook. So please, after you've watched the podcast, click on the YouTube, hit subscribe, click on the Facebook, and become a member of that as well. And I'm sure, Kell, it would be great to get you back on the show. But I'm gonna keep in touch with you. I'll let you know about the trip to Chillingham, because I think that would be a good one for you to come and do with us. And
definitely.
We can make some content maybe for both channels. That would be fantastic.
Yeah, that would be perfect. Yeah,
fantastic, great stuff. Well, Kell, thanks for giving us an hour of your time on Saturday night. Whatever you're doing tonight, have a great one. Keep in touch, and good luck with your podcast, and good luck with your trip to the USA. Take care.
Will do. Thank you. Bye bye.
We still do 7 NUFC Matters show a week for free. But if you want to help support NUFC Matters, then there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast and video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications bell so you don't miss a single show. If you want to help us financially, then you can join the channel using this button with the membership starting at $1.99 a month. Or you can drop us a donation in the chat using a super sticker. We're also looking for sponsors. If you'd like your brand advertised on the flyers for the show and featured during the ad break, then email john@nufcmatters.com to arrange today.